So I think a lot of young men and young people in general are suffering a lot with depression, right? Whether they're aware of that or not, there's a lot of depression in our society, not just the younger generation, but the older generation as well. Like we're all silently in this state of depression, right? In general society talking. And depression and anxiety and all these different symptoms that we can call these states that we're feeling, it's it's not natural, right? We've become to learn, like, as we grow up through this current society, that like depression is normal and like people go through depression and all of this. And yes, like depression can come about in your life, but it's not a natural way of being. Like our society has normalized these states of being, right? And we begin to identify with these states of being. So many people walking around saying, I'm depressed, or I have anxiety, or I have this, or whatever. In terms of like physical diseases as well, we begin to identify with all these emotions. But what I'm saying in this video, and what I'm going to share, these ideas and some solutions for things like depression, for example, is that firstly to realize that it's not natural, right? It's normal in this current society, but it's not a natural way of being as a true human being, the way that we've evolved to live. If you look at different animals and when they go through like traumatic experiences and stress and all these different things, they kind of shake away their stress and the fear in that moment, and then they go and live in their normal life as if nothing really ever happened. But as humans, we kind of hold on to these emotions and we identify with these emotions and these states of being, and we get stuck in a loop of thinking, of feeling and doing in our life. And this is very common with the theme of depression, right? So for me, like many young men, I guess like a few years ago, I was in like a state of depression, whether like I was conscious of that at the time or not, right? Like I was in the physical, like taking action and trying to change my life and trying to be positive. But I think we all have this, well, not all of us, but most of us, like going through this society and growing up the way that we lived up, we have this sense of lack and not really feeling like truly good enough or really whole within ourselves, like emotionally, right? There's something missing. And like we know that we want something more out of life, and like life just isn't meeting the expectations that we have for our dreams, right? Like we have big dreams for our life, but the way we're living and our results and our emotional stability is kind of, it doesn't match up to how we want to live, right? So we kind of feel kind of depressed and like I'm not good enough, or my life's not changing. I feel lost. I feel confused. I feel alone. Like a lot of young men feel very lonely, right, by themselves. Like they can't really connect with other people. They feel different to other people, and I felt that like a few years ago. And like my solution at the time was, okay, I'm just going to control these emotions, discipline, stop feeling sorry for yourself, take massive action and change your life, right? Be a man, be strong. And that can take you to a certain level. But at some point, we have to begin to look inside to what's really happening, because even when you talk about in general, like getting results in your life and changing your life, like you can take action in the physical, like I've talked about in many of these videos, but like unless you address the energetic reality that you're experiencing, nothing the external is going to be sustainable. Like the results that you get in your life, like you can build a big castle, but that castle can come crumbling down, or you end up living a reality that is someone else's dream, like ideas that the media and different people online have gave you, right? So essentially, when we look specifically at depression, right, what is depression? Like, what does that mean? Like, people say, I'm depressed. What does that actually mean? If we look at the word depression, it's like we're depressing our emotions, right? The pressure is going down and we're holding all of this pressure inside of us. And the word emotion literally means energy in motion, right? So we're depressing all of these emotions. And when emotion gets depressed, it begins to get dirty and it begins to be contaminated, right? Because we're holding in all of these emotions, right? So essentially, as we grow up in our childhood, and these emotions and energetic patterns can come from our ancestors, from past lives, from various different things as well, and different traumatic experiences that we can experience anytime in life. Basically, at some point, we are all born with emotions, right? Emotions run through us. And at some point, we have learned that a specific emotion, we're not allowed to feel that, right? Whether that's because of the society going through school system, we're not allowed to express or to move or to do things, right? And we have to sit down and be quiet and be a good little student, a good kids, to get good grades. Whether that's with our parents or in relationships, like we want to be attractive to the opposite sex, so we like disown parts of ourselves and we try to be attractive. But essentially, these emotions that naturally flow through us, like if you look at a little child, like the emotions flowing through, the sadness, the happiness, the excitement, these are natural emotions that naturally come through us. But at some point we begin to block those emotions, and when we block them, we depress them into our body and into our energetic body as well, which is one. So essentially throughout our life, we've learned that these emotions are good, these emotions are bad. For example, it's not okay to be sad. If you're sad, you're weak, right? And you're not good enough and you're not going to be attractive or whatever. And you need to be strong and you need to be happy, you need to be good, you need to be confident, you need to be whatever. So we're pushing away the bad and we're trying to reach the good emotions, right? But what that does, it kind of pushes both of the emotions away from each other. We're trying to live in this polarity, but we're pushing away this polarity, and we actually manifest that as well, more of the sadness, and it goes deeper. Because essentially, like, what we have to begin to understand is there's no such thing as a good or bad emotion, right? We have emotions that run through us. Emotion is just energy, okay? But like, we've grew up in a very like how our civilization was created, like very like religious, different religions and the control, what happens there, and we kind of separate good and evil, right? But they're kind of two sides of the same coin, right? So essentially, we have to begin to work with these emotions that are depressed. We depress them, and then we begin to identify with the emotions as well. Because that emotion wants to be expressed, right? But we're holding it in because we don't feel we're allowed to express that emotion, because it's too fearful to express that emotion. I won't be accepted if I express this emotion, for example, right? So when we become to identify with those emotions as well, like I'm feeling this and I have depression, we put ourselves in a box where you are stuck in that state of being. You identify with that emotional state, right? And again, your emotions, they create your reality, okay? So essentially, when people begin to understand this, what depression is, it's like, okay, I need to express my emotions, or I need to understand what happened to me, right? So most people in our culture, because we're so logical, is like, firstly, we go mental, right? Like we want to understand everything, like what is this problem that I have and what is the reason for this problem, and different things in terms of different therapies and understanding psychology and different things, which is great. The next step is to begin to work with the body, which is also amazing, to begin to express these emotions, for example, or to begin to feel these emotions, because the emotion is stored within the body, right? And we're working with our nervous system as well, and all of our body, all the organs where the emotion can be stored, which is also great. But what I'm proposing is the real cure for things like depression, but we could also say with anxiety, with any different thing that you're currently facing, is like really the origin of everything is energy, right? Like the energetic world creates the physical world. And the first step is to disidentify, right, with whatever thing that you have. Let's say you say like, I'm depressed, right? First is to disidentify with that. But then we have to really begin to work with the energy. Instead of trying to run away from the problem and try and fix a problem by changing your life or taking massive action or something, we have to really get to the origin of the energetic pain that is stored within us. And again, you can reach that within the body as well. But essentially, it's stored in your energy body because we're dealing with emotions, right? They're very ethereal. And these emotions that are stored within our chakras, it's like that emotion needs to be moved and we need to begin to release that, okay? And the key for all of that is to begin to feel the emotions, right? Because they're there and we're always trying to run away from them or to fix them or whatever. The first thing we have to do is really to allow them to be, right? To allow them. Instead of running away, just allow it. And once you allow it and the emotion begins to come up, right? You can begin to accept that emotion as well. And once you accept it, the third stage would be to embrace the emotion, right? Because these emotions are also parts of you, okay? And we're integrating the parts that we've disowned and we're coming back to our authenticity. And when we come back to our authenticity, we can live a life of free will. Instead of trying to live our lives, trying to fix problems or stress that we have in our life and trying to achieve some external thing that the world has told us that we need, right? We can begin to be okay with ourselves. We come back to the present moment, and from that present moment, we can begin to take action in alignment with our true dream, right? We can begin to connect with our heart because we're not stuck in our head, right? So really, to do this, as I said, the first stage is to disidentify with whatever state that you're feeling, right? Because it's not you, it's just an emotion, right? That's coming through you. And I think, in the Spanish language, actually, it's a bit more clear with this because in English, you would say like, I'm depressed, right? But in Spanish, they kind of have two different words for like, I am or I am in this moment. Like you would say, soy depressed, right? In English, depressed, which is I am depressed. Or you could say estoy, which is I am in this moment, for example, depressed, okay? So like, you can say, okay, I'm feeling this emotion, and it's not really depression. Like depression is like repressing the emotions. The emotion might be like sadness or fear or anger or different emotions that we feel, right? But not to identify with that. Like I'm feeling that in this moment, but that's not me, right? And then once we disidentify, we begin to work with the emotions. So like I recommend if you're feeling some emotion to begin to firstly like sit with yourself. Right? Like we're always trying to do things, take an action. What is the next exercise? What is the next thing, tactic for me to do something? Even when it comes to the healing world, we're looking for the next thing, right? But really first is to sit with yourself and to stop, right? To stop. And once you've stopped, you can begin to, as I said, first just allow. Whatever you're feeling, whatever you're thinking, whatever you're doing, just allow it to be. And from that allowing, you can come to accept whatever it is. And maybe that accepting takes time. Maybe you can't do that from sitting in one moment and like going into a meditation. Maybe it takes time to unfold, to accept kind of how you felt in your childhood, for example, and what happened to your ancestors and different things. It takes time to accept these things. And once you accept, you come to embrace that. And when you regain that energy, right, because energy doesn't go away, it's just transformed. All of that energy that you're pressing down in your life will begin to transform. And you can use all of that energy to create your new reality, right? In the physical of taking action, of being more alive in your life, more energy to do things. But also in terms of the law of attraction, that energy begins to attract new opportunities and new things into your life. So there's a real incentive to do this healing work as well. It's not just to feel better, but it's actually to get results in your life too, right? So, those are some general thoughts on depression in specific, but this kind of technique, you could say, or anti-technique of allowing and accepting and embracing can be used with pretty much anything, right? And we can begin to transform our inner reality. And I know I can't really make in-depth tactical videos in a short YouTube video like this, but as I mentioned in previous videos, I'm going to be making a free course. I'm making a free course right now for young men to really understand how to discover your purpose, how to change your life, and really the key will be like healing ourselves, right? To come back to the original authenticity, who we are, so that we can go and live in alignment with our true dreams. And this healing work is the foundation of all of that, transforming these emotions so that we regain our inner freedom, right? So I hope this video was helpful in some way, and I will see you in the next one.